Welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast, where our mission is to encourage, equip, and empower every woman on her faith journey with Jesus Christ. Today, we are honored to hear from professor, speaker, coach, and author Dr. Melissa Mork as she has a conversation with our podcast host, McKelty Bloom. Melissa is a certified humor professional, and she shares with us the tragic story and deep loss that led her into the mental health field and ultimately into studying humor specifically. Melissa brings a surprisingly humorous approach to processing through grief and a new perspective to how we approach our mental health. Her and McKelty discuss the many times Melissa was blocked from pursuing the call God had on her life and what caused her to keep going. They also share practical advice in supporting others through grief and how laughter can give you a minute to breathe through it all. This is a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy this podcast.
It's such a joy and honor to have you on the podcast.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but what we were going to talk about today, I was like, I have no idea what this is going to be. I'm just like, I am so excited to talk about all of this. Yeah. I couldn't even in my mind. I'm like, I don't know what this is what it's gonna be. So it's gonna be so much fun.
Yes.
I'm ready to laugh. I'm ready to dive deep into all of this. Yes. So thank you for being here. So Melissa, pleasure. Could you just share a little bit about yourself before we dive into our topics?
Yeah, I have a master's in clinical psychology, specializing in grief. My thesis was on patterns, processes, and obstacles of bereavement. So that's fun. And then my doctorate is in
heavy but fun. Yeah.
And then my doctorate is in clinical and forensic psychology. And I am a full professor at the University of Northwestern in St. Paul. I am former chair of the Department of Psychology, Criminal Justice, and Law Enforcement. I'm the president of the faculty right now, just got elected in do not say congratulations. I think you pronounce it condolences for that position. I host a podcast called Mental Health with Dr. Melissa Mork, and I've got a couple books out, one on grief, one on mental health. So I stay busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're not busy at all.
Yeah.
No
wonder I'm tired. I'm just like, why am I so tired every night? And I'm like, oh. Yeah,
I say that all the time. I'm like, man, Wyatt, my husband, I'm like, I'm just so tired. And he was like, look at your calendar. Like, just take a peek.
And your children. Yeah.
You do stay busy. But those are all incredible achievements.
I love my life. The Lord has been so good. And as I've gone through some very difficult times in my life, but the Lord, He blesses my soul and His Spirit gives me life every day.
What got you into mental health then? Because I caught the theme, psychology, a lot of those pieces. What got you into wanting to study that more?
Well, when I was 5, we had a television. I grew up down in southwestern Minnesota, outside of Ruthden, between Pipestone and Marshall, and on a dairy farm, and we only got 2 channels. And one of them, every Saturday night, they had the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and then they had the Bob Newhart Show. And the Bob Newhart Show was basically, he was a psychologist in Chicago, and he would have funny clients coming in and meeting with him, and it was a sitcom, but I thought, I want to be him. I want that job. I want to be a psychologist. And so from the time I was 5, I knew that I wanted to go into this field. Unfortunately, when I was in high school, my grades were less than stellar. And so when I went in to see my guidance counselor, I said, I want to be a psychologist. I've never wanted to do anything else in my life. And he looked at my grades and said, well, maybe we should probably consider another track. And he slid a brochure to a meat cutting program across the desk to me.
A meat cutting program?
Because apparently when you look at me, you see butcher.
Butcher?
Yeah, yes.
What? I just like, what? Okay.
I know. It felt a little out of left field for me, too.
Yeah,
so I took that to mean that I was not college material, so I took 7 years off to be an itinerant missionary, actually. And then I went back to college and went on majoring in psychology and then getting my graduate degrees.
Can I ask you, so how did you decide to fight against that, though? Because I know this isn't at all what we were going to talk about today, but people so often get blocked because of situations like that, where they're told you're not going to be good enough to do what you feel called to do.
Yeah.
And they do. They go on something else. They take a leap. But what made you decide, you know what? No, I actually want to do this.
Well, I mean, okay, this is going to get dark really fast, okay?
Here we go.
So,
I mean, we went to the butcher's, so we're already there.
Darker. So I was working as an itinerant missionary. It was through a repertory theater company out of Los Angeles. So I was an actress with a Christian drama company, and I had been working with them for 7 years. I spent 2 years backpacking across Africa doing this work.
Wow.
Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was a very sharp turn from either butcher or psychology. And then I was back in Los Angeles, and I developed some symptoms that became diagnosed as a autoimmune disorder, but it took me off the stage. It took me out of the ministry. And because I hadn't had a very large income, I hadn't been able to save any money, and I ended up homeless out in Los Angeles. And serendipitously, or maybe it was the Lord, one day I was driving the car that I was living out of, and I was rear-ended by a truck, and it totaled the car. And the insurance actually was enough for me to move back up north. And I moved up by my sister. And she said, you know, we should walk around the town up in Jamestown, North Dakota. She said, we should walk around. So we went for a walk. She said, oh, here's the college campus. It's really pretty. We should walk around it. I said, okay. She goes, oh, here's the admissions building. We should maybe walk in there. And so we did. And by the time we walked out, I was registered for classes, and they had arranged for financial aid. And so, yes, it wasn't my doing. Had I gone down the path I was going, I may still be homeless in Los Angeles. I don't know. So
it was really the Lord.
It was absolutely the Lord.
Yeah. So you're diving into mental health.
Yes.
You're really you're going, you have your master's, you're moving into psychology. What were you just teaching at this point, or what were some other jobs that you did at that?
Yeah, I've been a therapist for a number of years, a psychotherapist. And when I was in college, both of my parents died. My mother was killed in a car crash, and my father died of a broken heart attack shortly after. And so I started thinking, after my mother died and my father was still living, he said, honey, if you ever go into graduate school, I want you to study grief, because I'm tired of people telling me, I know what you are feeling. I know what you're going through because my dog died, or, whatever. And he said, it can't possibly be the same. And so I said, I promise you, Dad, if I do go on to graduate school, I'll study grief. And so he passed away a week after that conversation, actually. And I did go on and study that for my master's degree. So I do a lot of grief work, grief coaching, and psychotherapy, although I've stepped away from that to be the faculty president now. So
yeah. What made you want to go into the teaching element of it?
Again, it was the Lord, because I was doing my doctoral internship at the medical school at the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and I sent out, I'm approaching graduation, and I've got all of my clinical hours, and I'm sending out applications to all of these clinics in the Twin Cities, mental health clinics, blah, 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 not getting any response. And so finally, I started looking at other job opportunities, and Northwestern College in Orange City, Iowa was hiring for a psychology professor, and I thought, oh, maybe I could try that. So I sent out the application, cover letter, all of resume. And then I saw Northwestern College in St. Paul, Minnesota also was hiring. So I just basically changed the address on the... Sent it out again, because it's all about teaching in Jesus, right? Both are Christian universities. So the Northwestern in St. Paul reached out and said, would you come down and do a 3-day interview and do some, practice teaching and everything? So I went down and had not heard from any of the other places that I applied. So I went in, I did the interview, I was offered a contract, I signed the contract, and I am not kidding you, the day after I signed that contract, I started getting calls from other prospective employers saying, are you still interested? And I'd say, sorry. Yeah. And I've been there 22 years now at Northwestern. So again, clearly the Lord, he nudges me because I'm a little obtuse otherwise. So he just continues to nudge me until I walk through the door. I'm kind of like a chicken, you just have to. He just has to like usher me
Just
into
like,
the right
no,
door.
left, right. Just go straight.
God's feet, both sides of me, trying to steer me into the right door.
You know what? But sometimes he does that. He's
Yeah.
so gracious with us and helping us so clearly. I've had so many people ask me like, but how do I hear God's voice? Because I don't feel like I do. And I'm like, he's not trying to trick you.
No.
Like he's going to
Right.
lead you. He's
Right.
going to guide you. He's going to meet you where you're at.
And he also knows the desires of your heart, and you might not even know them, because
Right.
I did not know that teaching was going to be exactly what I never knew I always wanted to do. He knew.
Yeah.
He knew, and so it was, I would not have even conceived of it had he kind of shut all the doors to all of those other clinics.
Yeah.
Right.
And given you so many platforms to do it, because, you're able to actually teach in a classroom.
Yes.
And then you have the podcast.
Yes.
And then you have books.
Yes.
So tell me about your book, Mental Health Matters. What
Yes.
made you want to write that, and what did you put in there?
Yeah. So one of the classes that I teach I do the undergrad, and then I also teach at Liberty in the graduate program, and I teach courses on theories of counseling. And so from Freud and Adler all the way up to narrative and postmodern therapies, it's just a range of these therapies that I find are really helpful in my own life for my own good mental health. There are certain practices that are really helpful for me in my parenting of my 2 teenagers. And so I've just found these different theories, pieces of them, to be so helpful. So the book is actually called Mental Health Matters, How 10 Psychological Principles Will Enhance Your Mental Health. And so in each chapter, I apply one of these concepts or theories to how do you exercise these practices in your own life. So as an example, feminist therapy. Like, not many people in Christian realms would actually be pulled towards feminist therapy. But one of the tenets in feminist therapy is that therapists will ask, what is the most powerful thing you can do right now in the situation or distress that you are in? My mother, like I said, was killed in a car crash, and it was actually, she was T-boned by a semi. And the semi driver refused all testing until his lawyer was present, and so we never knew whether he was drunk or had drugs in his system or whatever. But I had a hard time forgiving him. I had a very hard time forgiving this man because my mother was my best friend. Like, she was hilarious. This woman was hysterical, and we had such a good friendship. And one day I'm teaching on feminist therapy in the classroom, and I ask this question to my students. What is the most, you're going through a hard time right now. What is the most powerful thing you can do right now? And I heard the Holy Spirit whisper in my ear, you need to forgive him. And I didn't want to hear that, but I also knew it to be true. And so the most powerful thing I could do right then in that season was forgive this man, because I had been holding on to such a heavy rock in my heart against him. And Lamott says unforgiveness is like drinking rat poison and then expecting the rat to die.
Yeah.
And so it really was destroying not only me, but my relationship with the Lord. And I mean, I just was carrying this root of bitterness in me. So on the anniversary of my mother's death, which actually was also my father's birthday, she was killed on his birthday. So I took that day off from teaching. I saw my kids off to school, and then I sat down and I called the highway patrol in the county where my mother was killed and asked for the driver's name, because it's a matter of public record. And then I was able to search for him and found him and his phone number, and I called. And blessedly, he didn't answer. And I left a voicemail message, and said, this is who I am. It's the 10th anniversary of this event. I pray you're doing well. I hope that you have been able to forgive yourself if that was necessary, but I'm just calling to let you know that I am forgiving you. And I'll continue to pray for you. And I did. And, forgiveness is it's a long process. It's not just a one-day epiphany, but that was the day I started that road of forgiveness because of the question, what's the most powerful thing you can do right now? So back to the question of the book. The book has 10 chapters on 10 different kinds of therapies, and how they can actually enhance mental health.
I love that. Oh, that sounds so cool. And we'll definitely make sure to link to all of your books and resources in our show notes so that people can take a look. And I think especially, your book on grief, so many people are walking through grief right now in a variety of different levels.
Right.
There's so many levels and stages that people are going through. So that will be a good one. But thank you for sharing that story of your mom. I think that a lot of people can relate to that. And yes, absolutely. So one of the things that you uniquely specialize in that I am just beyond excited to hear more about.
The thing I haven't mentioned yet, that thing? The fact that I'm an avid shoe wearer?
The avid shoe wearer, which I was like, what is an avid shoe wearer?
Aren't we all?
Are we all?
Especially in the winter.
I mean, who knows? But you are a certified humor professional.
Yes.
And when I saw that in our email exchanges, I'm like, what in the world is a certified humor professional? So I'm ready to dive in. Take me there. What is it?
So back to when my mother was killed. So a little bit of backstory. She, like I said, was a funny lady. She would come up to visit me in college when I first started up there. She would come up and visit for a weekend, and we would go grocery shopping, and we would get to the checkout, and she would pick up a magazine, and she'd be thumbing through it, and I'd be unloading the groceries onto the conveyor belt, and there would be an enema kit under the boxes of cereal, or there would be a king-size box of condoms under the vegetables, or bladder pads in there, and so these were not things I put in the cart. And so she would just, innocently be standing by as I'm having to hand the bladder pads over to the clerk saying, I've changed my mind on these. Thank you. Or one time she was a terrible cook. There were 8 kids in the family, and she was an awful cook. And one time she decided she would make spaghetti, and my dad liked meat in his spaghetti sauce, but we didn't have any ground beef or anything apparently. So she found a package of hot dogs. And so she's already got the spaghetti boiling. So she's in a rush. So she takes the hot dogs, and instead of just chopping them up, which would still be bad, she put them in the blender and hit puree. And so it turned into this hot dog nitrate sludge. And she just put it into the sauce. It was so bad. Even she wouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
And she would eat anything that she cooked, and it was terrible. But because she and my father were both born during the Depression, they also could not waste food. So we all ate cold cereal for dinner that night, and then she put this spaghetti with quote unquote meat sauce in a freezer dish and put on masking tape wrote wiener spaghetti and put it in the freezer. And then every so often she didn't want to cook dinner, so she would pull this wiener spaghetti out of the freezer to thaw right before my dad would get home from work, and he would walk in and see that on the counter thawing, and he would look at her and say, do you want to go out to eat tonight? And she'd say, okay. And then she would slip it back in the freezer, pull out frozen pizzas for the kids, and then off they would go. And when she died, my sister and I were going through the freezer and pulled out this block of ice. You could barely read freezer spaghetti in there. She was just a delight.
Yeah.
So at the funeral, it was a formal Presbyterian affair. The pastor stopped in the middle of the service, and he said, I want you to turn to a neighbor and share a favorite story about Trudy. And my dad and my siblings and I, we were just too sad to even participate in that, but I was listening, and it was interesting because first it was just, silence and sniffles. And then there were whispers and giggles and chuckles and then snorts and guffaws, and people were laughing hysterically about my mother. And it was in that moment that I realized if I'm allowed to grieve and laugh, I can get through this. If I can remember her with laughter, I'm going to survive this, because up to that point, I hadn't been able to breathe. I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah.
But because I could laugh, it set me free to step into the grief. So fast forward, I was on my first sabbatical from the university, from teaching, and I decided I wanted to study the psychology of humor. And so through a very long Google search, because that's what academics do, is we Google things.
Google everything.
I found the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, because I found my own grief process helped through this, humor was therapeutic for me.
Do you believe you have leadership potential? Bridging the Gap believes every woman is a potential leader, and we have designed a leadership conference to invest in your development. Whether you're an experienced leader in the marketplace, ministry, or your community and seeking to grow, or you would like to begin developing skills and network as a future leader, this almost 24-hour event is for you. Mark your calendar for February 21st through 22nd, 2025 at Lake Geneva Christian Center in Alexandria, Minnesota. We'll have main sessions with global Bible teacher, speaker, and mentor Charlotte Gamble, and worship with Keaton and Emily Getz. Multiple workshops, networking opportunities, exhibitors, and fun, all to encourage your leadership potential. You'll enjoy cozy up north activities, the after party, on-site meals, and you can even update your headshot. It's going to be a power-packed, wonderful event that you and your team won't want to miss. Secure your housing today. Register individually or as a group at mnbtg.org/leadership. We'll see you there.
So the Certified Humor Professional Program through AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, is a 3-year post-college set of courses. And I studied applied and therapeutic humor in the areas of like parenting and leadership and bereavement and instructional humor and dark humor in first responders and law enforcement. Like all of these different domains of laughter and humor and how it is physiologically beneficial and psychologically beneficial and spiritually beneficial and relationally beneficial. And so that's how I got to become a certified humor professional. So basically, it doesn't mean I'm funny, but it does mean that I understand how to apply it in a way that is useful.
So give me an example of, in any of those categories of how it would work.
Because I wrote the book started out called Navigating Grief with Humor, and I actually did an online course on that too. We had like 5,000 people enroll in this class from all over the world.
That's
because
amazing.
Apparently people want to laugh through their grief. But I had a friend who has 5 sons, but 3 of them were killed in a car crash while coming home from Walmart. And
at the same time?
Yes, they were in the car. They had all gone. She was cooking dinner, and they said, we're going to run to Walmart. And she said, okay, be home by. And they never came home. And her 2 younger sons were just, of course, devastated at the loss of their 2 older brothers. And every night before they would go to bed, she would put on a sitcom and insist, just not, because she wanted them to be able to go to sleep with laughter along with their grief. I mean, there's no way to escape the grief.
No.
But at least there would be some light and levity as they fell asleep at night. That's a use of therapeutic humor. The conversations that you hear at a funeral, the conversations you hear at work when things are going kind of hard at work and there's, some problems with leadership and everybody is tense. Kind of the levity that you're hearing out in the hallways, the laughter in the lounge, right? That's all therapeutic humor.
Yeah.
I mean, we use it to get through tough times. I think every one of us has found ways that we use humor or laughter to help us cope.
I think it's more natural than we probably realize.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking last night I was sitting with a mom who just lost her son tragically in a bike accident.
Yeah.
And, it was this mix of tears from both of us and grieving together, but then laughing at certain things too, and how it gives you that minute to breathe and to take a breath.
There is air, there is life, there is light in that laughter. And I have a PDF actually that I sometimes will send out, and on the back, like the tasks of grief, and on the back is instructions on how to, if you print it out, you can actually fold it into a paper airplane because we need air under our grief, right? And that's what laughter does, is it gives us breath.
I feel like, you had spoke to like law enforcement and stuff like that. Man, I'm sure that's something that they would have to carry with them too, because it's so heavy. I bet that's a powerful tool for them.
Well, and the culture of first responders and law enforcement is very much dark humor, gallows humor. And it's not just as a way of getting breath back in after a really tough time, but it also is kind of a hazing. Like if I leave a severed hand in your locker and you open it and find it, are you going to laugh or are you going to vomit? If you vomit, we're going to keep hazing you. If you laugh, you're one of us now, right? So We have different cultures of humor and laughter. Yeah, I know. I could have used a different example. Sorry.
I would love
But there's just all these different ways of using laughter and humor therapeutically, including the Cancer Treatment Centers of America have laughter yoga clubs as a way. I am on the board for Gilda's Club, which is a cancer resource network, and we offer improv twice a week for people who have been impacted by cancer. So just there, I think laughter and humor. We don't actually put degrees behind our knowledge there, but there's definitely that.
How does it connect with us spiritually? You mentioned spiritually, and how can we use this tool for just these moments with God too in that way?
Yeah, I think good humor encapsulates not just laughter and not just wit, but it also encapsulates gratitude and excitement and enthusiasm and feeling moved by the Holy Spirit and feeling that that rush inside. Like sometimes when I'm having a really good laugh, my chest feels expanded. When I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, my chest feels expanded. And so I think that there are absolutely, I think that all ties into this understanding of God's humor being even greater than we can comprehend because we're very limited in our ability.
Yeah, that's a good point. Has there been a time where it's helped you specifically go through it besides your mom? Because that's what kind of got you interested, right? You're
that's
like,
what
okay.
got me interested, yes.
Have you been able to put it into practice at a different point in your life too?
Yes. So after my parents died, I had a whole series of losses. I was married. I had reproductive losses. I had 4 miscarriages. I lost a niece to juvenile diabetes and a nephew who we had helped raise to an aneurysm. And my husband died of lung cancer when my children are 12 and 17. And through all of those, and while those are all tied to grief, I mean, we're all experiencing difficult transitions, which is what grief is. It's trying to navigate these very difficult losses or changes or transitions. And so I found that when I was able to look for something that was funny, if I could see something that was funny, if I could share something that was funny, if I could find some way to tap into humor, I could get through it. It just always felt like either I have a choice. I can either cry or I can laugh. And if I laugh, either way I'm going to have tears. But if I laugh, it's going to help me tolerate the hard parts. And when I see patients, for example, we might be going through really hard things. We're working through a trauma or alienation from an adult child and whatever it is that we're working through. But I find that we start out with like relationship building at the beginning of the session and we're laughing. And then at the end, if I can do kind of a callback to what we were laughing about at the beginning and we can laugh together, I'm putting you back together again. I'm helping you get that breath again and a little bit of light back in. And so I find it therapeutic even in those kinds of situations.
Yeah, because it's totally a coping mechanism.
Absolutely.
And I think some people I've heard, even like TV shows, they make fun of it. Like you're laughing and it's a coping, it's like not healthy. I think of Modern Family. I don't know if you ever watched Modern Family, but Claire, there's that one episode where she is like, anytime there's like grief or something sad, she's like smiles and she can't. They're like, this is a terrible stop. Yeah. But I feel like in some ways it's not necessarily a bad for laughing because it's like you just have to take that breath again. Right. It's like that's sometimes just how you get through it.
Well, and I'll hear people say it's a defense mechanism. Well, of course it is. And also, if you've studied Freud, defense mechanisms exist as a way of protecting you against something that causes you distress. And in therapy, our job is not to dismantle or like barrel through this wall of defense mechanism. It's finding a way to use it to your benefit and to lower it a little bit so that you can slowly confront the thing that's causing you distress. So yes.
No, I like that visual.
Yeah. Am I using humor or laughter as a defense mechanism? Absolutely I am. And it's helping protect me until I'm ready to really confront the reality of what's going on.
I love that visual. It's slowly giving you this,
Yes.
slowly getting you there.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's just too much to
It's
take
too
on all
much
at once.
to comprehend. Your friend that you were talking about,
Yeah.
that you sat with yesterday, what she's facing is too much to endure without the Lord and without some levity.
Yeah. Just that little bit. You need that little bit of relief. And I think that's what we're called to do as Christians. And what we're called to just do as people and as friends is to help to bring that relief to people.
Yes.
And with grief, I've had a lot of people ask me, when I'm going to talk with a friend who's grieving, when I'm going to talk with a friend who's just really struggling with their mental health, how do I support them? Because I think we have this picture of we're supposed to just go and be dark and sad with them. And that's not always my mindset. I walk in with a smile. And it's not this annoying smile, like everything's great and chippy and fake.
Right.
But it's just a smile. It's like, I'm here and I'm here with you and I'm going to talk about something and try to get a little smile and a little laugh. But then we're going to talk about heavy things. But exactly what you said, it's like still keeping that lightness, and because you need to give them a little bit of air.
Right. And when I go to visit somebody who's really struggling, my first rule, and I'm going to share it with you because I find it really helpful, is to show up and shut up and then listen and follow their lead. If they don't want to talk about what's going on, you track with them.
Right.
If they want to talk about what's going on, track with them. But follow their lead, especially in their humor. So if all they want to do is just laugh and cut up, go with it. If there's no room for that right now because they are so steeped in their sorrow, go with it. But understand that, that it's got to be on their terms, but that you can be open and encouraging rather than like, oh, we can't go there, we can't talk.
Yeah.
That's shame on you, right?
Well, that makes me feel better because that's what I do.
Yeah.
So, I follow your rule. Because that's why I walk in. It's like, I'm not going to bring it up until you bring it up. That's kind of what my rule is. It's like, I'm going to follow your lead. And if you don't want to talk about it, because you're probably exhausted from talking about it with every single person you see. So, if you want a break, that's fine.
On the flip side, if I am not open to talking about it, then they feel like they can't either. So often, and this is just a piece of advice for anyone listening, is that if somebody you care about is really struggling with whatever, mental health issue, loss, bereavement, transitions, whatever, text them and just ask them, how are you doing today? Make sure you add the today, because if you say, how are you doing, it feels too overwhelming to even articulate. But if it's, how are you doing today? That gives a narrow window of responses. Like it feels more, I can actually answer that question.
And the how are you doing? It's just, no, I'm not doing great. I lost someone, or I'm going through this, or I'm overwhelmed with this.
If you text me, how are you doing right now? Well, right now I'm sweating like a dog because the air conditioning isn't working. I'm also grieving, but this is what I'm doing, right?
Yes,
so how are you doing right now or today is a really helpful question.
Oh, well, this has been so enlightening for me to hear all about this. And I really was excited to hear about the humor aspect. And, as we're wrapping up, what is just any final thoughts of anything you really wanted to make sure we talked about today that maybe we didn't get to, or just final pieces of encouragement for someone listening that maybe they just haven't had a lot of laughter through their grief and a lot of joy through the pain or the depression or the anxiety, and they just need that a little dose of encouragement.
Right. My dose of encouragement is you don't have to be funny to appreciate humor or to use it and apply it in your own life. You just need to know where to look for it, even if it's on TikTok or if it's you have a favorite stand-up comic or there's a show that you like to watch that makes you laugh, or puppies. I follow all kinds of cats on Instagram and it cracks me up all the time. So you don't have to be funny to use humor therapeutically. You just have to look for it.
That's great. Well, thank you. It was truly a pleasure to meet you and to hear all about your life and to get to chat about this. So thank you for taking the time and joining us on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Bridging the Gap podcast. We were honored to hear from Dr. Melissa Mork on Laughing Through It. Be sure to check out her 2 books, Mental Health Matters, How 10 Psychological Principles Will Enhance Your Mental Health, and Bounce, From Thriving to Surviving Through Loss. You can give her a follow on social media. Just look up Dr. Melissa Mork, and you can find her on YouTube at Melissa Bartman Mork. Also, Dr. Melissa has an incredible podcast called Mental Health Matters with Dr. Melissa Mork, with over 100,000 downloads so far, so go give a listen. You can learn more about Bridging the Gap at mnbtg.org by downloading the Bridging the Gap app through the App Store or by following MNBTG on social media. And we also invite you to take a moment to rate and review this podcast to help others find this resource as well. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to being with you next time on the Bridging the Gap podcast.